News Radio 700 WLW.
I don't know if you have noticed this or not. I have. I just noticed it actually last weekend, and it was in another country. But it was dealing with a Gen Zer. And what I'm talking about is this blank deer in the headlights stare. And I encountered it last weekend when dealing with someone, and admittedly, there was a little bit of a language barrier. But it seems anymore that if you deal with a Gen Zer, you invariably get that look. You know what look I'm talking about. And I can't figure out whether or not it's intentional or it's just a characteristic of this particular age group. Now, look, when anybody older than any age group makes an observation about that younger age group or something that would be viewed as a condemnation of that younger age group, then all of a sudden you got, oh, there's another old guy going off on the younger generation. But it's there. It's not. It's just an observation. It's called the Gen Z stare, and apparently this thing is a hot topic on TikTok. The blank look some young adults may give you when you try to interact with them. So is this a real thing? Is this something that is staged, or is it something that is just inherent to that particular age group? Standing by to weigh in is someone who is a workplace etiquette expert. My gosh, we need more of that around the office. And CEO of today's Professionals Consulting and Development. Her name is Julie Jones, and she's kind enough to give us some of her time here on this Saturday to talk about the Gen Z stare. Julie, how are you on this glorious day?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. Are you doing well today?
If I was doing any better, I'd be triplets. That's how good it's going for me here, Julie. You know what I'm saying?
I love it. I love it.
So yes. This stare, I mentioned I was out of the country for the last couple of weeks, and I was dealing with someone in another country of this age group, and although it was a language difference, we were connecting, we were talking. She spoke English a hell of a lot better than I spoke her native language. But then it got to a point where I was challenging her on something. She was in the service industry, and I was challenging her on something, and there it went. It was almost like robotic, like somebody dropped a quarter in the back of her neck, and this stare just came out. So I'm just wondering, is it something that the Gen Zers are pulling on us, a little trick, or do you think there's something to this generationally?
It feels like they all got together and said, let's just pull this stare and see what happens, right?
Yeah, right.
It is a real deal. It is. And it's you're right. It's all over social media, and they're talking about it. And so, in looking, and I teach communication a lot, and I work with a lot of the students that are coming out of college. And I've been doing this a long time. I'm doing it 12 years. And so with the millennials, we had issues with them. These kids, they come out of college and this, and so now it's the Gen Zs. And so they have been behind screens. They don't have the ability, or let me say the experience. I don't say the ability. They don't have the experience with face-to-face communication that other generations have had before. I'm Gen X. I grew up in an area where we didn't really talk on the phone a lot. It was all face-to-face, and then we picked up the phone. We didn't have emails and things like that. So our face-to-face communication was well developed. And then the millennials, they are the same thing. They were kind of half and half, right? And now our Gen Zs, these were the students who 5 years ago were going to school during COVID, during the lockdown, on Zoom calls. And a lot of them had their cameras off, and they weren't really paying attention. And so they've been behind screens. And so it's our job, every generation, it's our job to link arms with them and teach them what they need to know so that they can be successful and take their place in society.
Well, that's pretty damn sad. I mean, because I sound like I grew up in the same in the same environment as you did, and that is you talk to people, and I think people this generation looks at a phone as a texting device as opposed to a phone. If the phone rings, they immediately freeze and then it goes to voicemail, and then they'll listen to it. So I think what we're talking about here are basic social skills. And if you have to teach someone who's 23, 24, 25 basic social skills, I think that's a sad commentary as to where we are.
Well, this is our AI world, right? Everybody, I mean, you do everything with a bot.
Yeah.
You know, we even have plumbing companies. I ran a plumbing company. I owned a plumbing company for 7 years, and they people wanted to schedule a plumber on the phone. I mean, on a computer, not on the phone. And I have seen too where our Gen Zs are oftentimes getting coaching before they can pick up the phone and make a call to make a dental appointment. Because what we're seeing is higher rates of anxiety and depression in this generation of students as well. So they just are not as well versed in the communication skills. And like you said, the social interaction. They've been alone a while. And so
a higher rate of depression? Okay, let's jump off there, because I can't see anything that's appreciably different with our society between where it is today and where it was 10 years ago, with the exception of the explosion of social media. And I hate to blame everything on social media, but it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing something here, but it seems to me that if you've got that level of depression and anxiety in a group that have basically been living with mom and dad for the majority of their life, I have to go back to what's different over the last 10 years, and that's social media. Am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it has a lot to do with it, because look at social media. You've got influencers. You've got everybody has their perfect life, and a lot of it is not real, right? I mean, we put our best foot forward on social media and talk about how happy we are and all the things, but it's a perception. But also, let's look at how times have changed, too, because I talked about this earlier in the week. When we came out of college, right, not everybody had college degrees, first of all. Not everybody went to college 30, 40 years ago. And so we could come out and we knew that we could get a job. We could make a good wage. We had potential to develop a career. We could get into a home back then. Home prices were not as high. Whereas today, our students everybody goes to college, or a lot of people do. They come out in debt. The starting salaries are not where they need them to be or where the expectations are. And they start off behind the curve. And then the housing prices are high. The down payment is a lot more than it was when we came out of high school and college. And so it's harder to reach and I'm doing air quotes, the American dream. Yeah. And so what we perceived as the American dream was attainable. They don't see it as attainable.
Well, that again, in and of itself is sad, and it may be a reflection as to what the parenting was like, or just what the influencing was like when they were kids growing up at 10, 11, 12 years old, when you're so impressed by what things are. And if that dream isn't there at 23 or 24, chances are there was a problem earlier in that person's life. But what I fear here, and communication comes in a lot of different ways, right? It comes verbally, it comes visually, but if you don't have that nuance of the actual conversation happening, and you don't pick up on the nonverbal things that go on, I could say one sentence to you in a text, and you might be able to take it 2 or 3 different ways. But if you don't have that interaction, all of a sudden, we're beginning to understand this a little bit more, and maybe a lot is what's going on here is that this group has only developed 2 dimensions. They haven't developed that 3rd dimension. And again, if we have to take them by the hand at 23, 24, 25 and say, okay, we're going to teach you now how to be a functioning human being, that to me creates more problems than I think that we have right now. I'm just wondering, is it everyone like that? Are you running into a lot of kids in that generation that are different than what we've been talking about? Yeah,
yes, there is. It is more. Yes, I'm seeing it. But at the same time, my message is, and because what you just expressed is what I'm hearing over and over again. Like, why are we having to do this at when they're coming out of college? Because, and my answer to that is, we need to meet people where they are so that we can bring them forward. So wherever they are, we just need to meet them. And yes, in companies when they're starting their jobs, things like, start times, those are just guidelines to a lot of our new generation, like, you need to be here at 9. Well, if they show up at 9:30, 9:45, it should be okay. Right. We were like, we start at 9, be here at 9. So, so those are just a few of the things about asking for help. They don't have these skills. So that's what we're doing, is we're teaching them. And the parents are also reaching out, because a lot of parents have seen this, because it's generational, and so it's just the way things are. Not all of them have this. A lot of students that are coming out, I've worked with several students and groups that are very, very vocal and verbal, and they have the eye contact, and they understand the whole part of it's about the words that you use coupled with the tonality and the nonverbal communication that all goes together to communicate the message. But, it's really just the students that have just been isolated. And I agree. I 100%, our technology has done a lot of it, because we just are not as out and about, and we do more business with technology now. Can order things and have it delivered to your house. You don't ever have to go shopping anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I don't.
My kids.
I don't want to put you out of work, okay? Because
right.
I know what you're doing and what you're trying to do. But it would seem to me, if there's a parent that's listening to us right now, and knowing the reach of this radio station, there are a hell of a lot of parents listening. I'm just wondering what a parent can do with a child when that child is 13, 14, 15 years old, that would prevent what we're talking about when that child becomes a young adult at 22, 23, 24 and can't function verbally in the real world. What can a parent do preemptively on this?
Well, there's a lot of things, and I think that's a great point. I always encourage parents to have dinner together as a family as often as possible with no phones. If you go out to eat, no phones. If you sit down at the table, no phones. And this includes parents, because I have had kids come to me and say, it's my parents that are on their phones. It's not us, So let's just agree that we're going to have communication again. Let's talk around the table. Let's have movie nights, and let's do things together as a family without our phones. And then also, there's always this piece, and you're going to know exactly what I talk about. A lot of us don't want to hear it from our parents. And so even though our parents say it, and this is when they call me and they say, will you please talk to my child, because they're not believing that I'm telling the truth, or I know what I'm talking about. Right. Having somebody else come in, and so if your child is involved in a group, a community service group or student council or something like that, invite speakers in to offer classes for them. I think that the more opportunities we get to have people come in and talk to our students and our children that are not us, the better off we are.
100%. I do. And you're right about not wanting to hear it from a parent. I think anybody who's been a parent knows exactly what you're talking about. All right, Julie.
And that's what they call me.
Yeah.
Right.
You work with everybody coast to coast on these kinds of things and others with regards to business etiquette, communication, and things like that. And my guess is there are probably some companies in the greater Cincinnati area that might be interested in you. Todaysprofessionals.com is your website, todaysprofessionals.com. And when someone goes to that website, besides seeing a professional like yourself, I'm sure your picture's there, what else do they get at todaysprofessionals.com?
Well, there's a blog section where I write about that, and I always try to give helpful hints. And then there's also a contact form. Fill it out and say, I just want to talk to you for a few minutes. I'll call you back.
Good. Great. Fantastic. Good insight into what's going on here. And I'll say, I'm going to do a little self-research here in the next day or two to see exactly how prevalent this is. But I have encountered it But hopefully, with work that you're doing and others, it won't be a problem for much longer. Julie, thank you for your time.
It won't.
All right. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was good talking to you.